Welcome, everybody. It's really fantastic to see everybody here today. I'm thrilled to welcome you to Maine Media's Alumni Lecture Series. My name is Michael Mansfield. I am the president of Maine Media, and I'm really privileged to be able to introduce two generations of really remarkable image makers today as part of the alumni community. So thank you very much for coming. I'm excited to give them as much time as possible. We have a couple of housekeeping notes I want to share with you. First, this is being recorded. We will archive it and make it available on through our web platforms online in short order. If you would prefer that your image not be used, please feel free to mute your video. And I would also ask that regardless that you mute your audio so that we don't get any background interference or have phone calls or ringing in the background. So please mute yourself. You'll have an opportunity to unmute yourself when we're asking questions, or you can use the chat function in the bottom of the Zoom window to post questions there, which we will get a chance to get to at the end. So thank you very much for all of that. This alumni lecture series is free and open to the public. Thanks to the extraordinary generosity of individuals and sponsors both, including Camden National Bank, Eaton Peabody Attorneys at Law, Allen Insurance and Financial, Wallace Events, our friend Colin Page at the Page Gallery, Two Ponds Press, who I will highlight today because they recently won an award for a book produced with our very own Sig Harvey. So congratulations to them and to Sig for the piece that she produced with them. It's also brought to you by B&H Photo, Video, and Audio, our great friends there that have been sponsors and partners with us for a very long time, Cedar Crest Inn and WERU Community Radio. So I just want to thank our sponsors that make this all possible. This lecture series has been really an extraordinary gift to us at the school. It's great to have everybody come and speak and keep the community energized and active. I'm really thrilled to have had a small part in bringing these things together. So if I can make a shameless plug for our workshop season, we are opening on June 20th, the campus. Campus is open now, and we've welcomed all of our MFA students for a retreat. Really extraordinary bunch of people. It's great to have the campus alive. And we'll be welcoming all of our workshop students starting June 20th. We have workshops available all the way through well into November, and all of which are posted online. I hope you'll have a moment to peruse the offerings and find a selection of workshops that you'll be able to join us with. We'd love to have you. It is beautiful here this week, and I'm sure it's going to be that way all the way through the summer. So I'm positive the weather will hold out for us. But it's great. I can't wait to see you on campus this summer. This is the second to last lecture series of this spring season. Our last lecture will be May 17th. We're featuring its observational filmmaking in the documentary world with Ali Humanuk. She will be hosted by the chair of our film department, Wayne Beach, who's done an extraordinary job bringing together some of the really leading figures in the field. So I hope you will join us on May 17th at 1 p.m. And with that, I'd like to take just a minute to introduce our remarkable speakers today. It's a distinct pleasure to really be able to introduce two generations from the same family of image makers that are really influencing the field of photography and visual art. John Paul almost needs no introduction here. He was the first printing instructor, the first digital printing instructor here at Maine Media Workshops, as well as at Santa Fe Workshops, at Palm Beach Photographic Center, and the Rocky Mountain School of Photography. He was one of 5 artists selected to lead the Epson Print Academy, and having taught thousands of people over 30 years, he now teaches his premier digital printing workshops at his private studio. JP is his works are really about, as he describes it, the nature of perception and the perception of nature. It's a form of environmental art in virtual space. He's a pioneer among visual artists. He's been working with digital media and consults with the corporations that build our imaging tools, such as Adobe and Apple, Canon, Kodak, and Sony. He's a member of the Photoshop Hall of Fame, Epson Stylus Pros, and X-Rite's Colorati. He's exhibited internationally. His works have been purchased and exist in private collections and public collections both, including the Estee Lauder collection, Princeton University, and something called the Smithsonian. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Actually, it's funny. That's where I first encountered his work when I was working at the Smithsonian. So I was thrilled that he would be here when I got up here. He's the author of the video training series RE Evolution and the book Adobe Photo Masterclass. And for over 20 years, he's been a contributing editor to a variety of magazines and websites, including Camera Arts and Digital Photo Pro, the Huffington Post, and Apple. And you can certainly find him on Google and TEDx Talks online. He's here to shepherd our conversation with Paul Caponigro also. Paul is just he's an internationally celebrated photographer with a career spanning over 60 years. He's born in Boston. He's widely regarded as one of the premier photographers of our time. He's devoted his time to exploring documentary and ancient architecture and the natural world. And his prints, leaning towards black and gray, I should say, tonalities, present the world around us in truly stunning detail. He began to take an interest in photography when he was around 12 years old and had a vibrant passion for music. Began studying in 1950 at the College of Music at the University of Boston. The piano work that you heard at the beginning, at the outset of this lecture, was by his hand. So we had a little concert with Paul Caponigro to get us started. He discovered the West Coast School of Photography in the 1950s when he was in the Army, and decided to focus his creative energy on making pictures. He studied at California School of Fine Art alongside other famous photographers, including Minor White. He exhibited his works first with the George Eastman House and published with Aperture magazine. He began to teach photography at the University of Boston and received 2 Guggenheim fellowships around the time he made one of the most recognizable images of his career, running white deer, during his time in England and Ireland. His work is included in collections from the Guggenheim to the Whitney, Norton Simon Museum, the New Mexico Museum of Art, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. He's been awarded the Royal Photographic Society's Centenary Medal, an honorary fellowship for his sustained significant contribution to the art of photography in 2001. So with that, I would like to turn it over to JP and Paul. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Michael, for that very gracious introduction. Nice to be with you here on this sunny afternoon. Let's hope it continues, right? It's been great this week.
Yeah.
Super. And it's fun to be back with Maine Media, of course, always. I think we'd like to just jump right into images. We'll start there and then continue the conversation after. I just want to let people know that as we do this, we're going to show some quotes, and people can download the ebook that's been made from this slideshow on my website. If you just go to the blog, it's the second post there. That's where you can find it. So remember to get the ebook there. It's free, as so many things on my website are. Okay, ready? You want to read?
Oh, there's some writing up there, but yeah, I said that, didn't I?
Wait, so sorry, John. And
I've got to share the screen.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfection.
Can you read it?
At times, I make photographs for the sheer magic of its process. and the good feeling about the very stuff needed, light, chemical combinations, some imperceptible forces at work behind the scene. I am part of the drama which takes the guise of photography. And that's a beautiful photograph I made some years ago of the Reading River. I often see the materials of photography as being a type of terrain. Emulsions, liquid developers, silver sols, and fixtures interact, and I construct a landscape that I need to first explore in my mind's eye if I am to make it manifest as an artful image in silver. The materials as landscape. I tell my son this very often. One needs to be still enough, observant enough, and aware enough to recognize the life of the materials, to be able to hear through the eyes. The key is to not let the camera, which depicts nature in so much detail, reveal just what the eye picks up, but what the heart picks up as well. I like that photograph too. Photography is a medium, a language, through which I might come to experience directly, live more closely with the interaction between myself and nature. Photography's potential as a great image maker and communicator is really no different from the same potential in the best poetry, where familiar everyday words placed within a special context can soar above the intellect and touch subtle reality in a unique way. No, did I say that too? Oh. The only way a work of art can become great is for one to acknowledge that it doesn't belong to anybody. The greatness is in constantly giving back, coming to an acknowledgement of the source. Some of my photographs have always been a mystery to me in terms of how I arrived at them. Keep alive the fact that a mystery has come into existence and that a physical being serves as a house for this mystery. To that I'll add, I eat mystery for breakfast. And of course, the influence of mystery is one of the greatest influences. All that I have achieved are these dreams locked in silver. Bueno.
A photograph is an invitation to look and to look at looking. Looking and seeing are two different things. How do we know what we know? Is seeing believing? Is believing seeing? Listen carefully. The ways we speak about things is revealing. Art is a process of discovery. Questions guide our ways. It takes asking many questions from many perspectives to truly understand something. A good question offers many answers. It's possible to look in more ways than one simultaneously. Surfaces reveal and conceal. Capturing the light reflected off things is different than being captured by them. Different people can photograph the same things with the same tools and create such different images. We are the strongest filter we can place on any lens. We always point the lens both outward and inward. A way of seeing is a way of being. The frame frames a frame of mind. My work is about the nature of perception and the perception of nature. The two are deeply interrelated. Making photographs can be a way of having a conversation with nature, and so with ourselves. We are not apart from nature. We are a part of nature. So as I mentioned, if you want to revisit any of that, the ebook is downloadable right up there on my blog. And with that, I think that we'll get to the conversation. So Papa, I wanted to talk about prints. Why are prints so important? I love that you have to think about it. You've been making them all your life.
Well, the answer was so goddamn obvious. I had to think, what can I say? Well, how do we share? The print's primary purpose is to share one's own thinking with another being. And that's, as I say, primary.
Yeah, and I'm living in a different generation where more people see my images on a website or on a phone, Instagram, than they ever do the print. It makes me think that the print itself, whether it's coming into a studio, a one-on-one visit, or whether it's in an exhibit, the print becomes an event. It's not as common for most people, unless you're a photographer and make your own prints, or unless you collect photographs. It's special to see original works.
Well, human beings have been doing it for thousands of years. They make images and they put them up in one way or another, share them, write them on stone walls, put them in museums.
You're making the darkroom sound like Glasgow caves.
Exactly.
I think a print starts and continues the conversation with an image. You know, my students often ask me, how do you decide what to do when you're dodging burning or enhancing contrast or deciding how big if something becomes, what materials to use? All of these decisions have a profound impact on the final experience of looking at the thing. And I often tell them, start by asking the image questions, start that conversation. Because many times there are these surprises. I know that Galaxy Apple, your Galaxy Apple, which was so influential to so many of us.
The most beautiful accident is part of my life.
Exactly. Tell me about that.
It was an accident. I mean, I photographed a piece of nature, a beautiful piece of nature, an apple. It was in a fruit bowl. I focused in on it and I was going to make a beautiful apple. I forget what apple it was. What was it? Golden Delicious. No, it's not golden. One of the Delicious series. Anyway, when I started thinking about printing it, I usually make proof prints of my negatives, if only for filing, but mostly I like to see what's this negative going to reveal to me, what's it going to give me, what can I do with it. As I was making a set of proofs, I inadvertently had produced some overexposed prints, dark ones, underexposed, and I had to sort out, all right, which one am I going to keep? Well, in that lot of prints was one dark, particularly dark, which caused the specks of light on the surface of the apple to shine forward and become like a night sky. Now, I didn't think about that at all when I photographed the apple. It simply revealed itself in a part of the, as I said before, you love your materials. It often will give you surprises and gifts. But there it was. It had been decided for me how that apple would be revealed. So instead of an apple, it became a galaxy.
I think that sense of discovery is so important in any art. I know it's true in writing a good poem. You're always looking for the turn, the twist, the unexpected.
It should stay alive,
Mm.
even when you think you know what you're doing.
So it's always an adventure.
It is.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's underrated with prints, not spoken enough about, is how not just durable they are, but persistent they are. I mean, these things hang out in our environment. They create an environment. And I know that the things that have been printed out, things that inhabit my studio or the gallery down below, I live with them, and they kind of live in me in a special way. That conversation gets continued, I think, sometimes even subconsciously. I remember you brought home that little 4x6 color shot of Nana being scattered in the ocean on my grandmother's ashes.
Oh, yes.
Remember, I wasn't able to attend that event, a funeral, yes, but not the scattering. And you brought me home a little picture. And I left it in the side of my studio for a couple of years. I didn't realize until I grabbed an image across the other side of my studio and moved it in proximity to the others. It was a picture of smoke coming out of the water. That little picture had been working on me in very specific ways that I hadn't realized until I saw the two things together.
You surround yourself with photographs, images.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing you're a big man. 6'2", is it? Thereabouts, because there's so much that you have to digest.
Well, look at you.
You are very open, and perhaps a little too open at times, where there's too much to digest all at one time.
Wow.
And I prefer to settle down and not be overwhelmed, so that I can focus on, what is there that I really am sharing with my fellow man. How am I like them? How are they like me? We do both bump into an apple that could become a galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, maybe some of us are a little more insatiable than others.
Incidentally, I see, and you tell me that you have images all over your walls. You've been to my house.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Mostly paintings, a couple of photographs, including mine.
There might be a half a dozen pieces, but I don't have my photos on the walls. I don't have others. Well, there might be one or two. There are a couple of yours, which I like very much. But I like to keep that for the working process mostly, and not be overwhelmed in not make wallpaper out of it.
I think the paper we put on our walls is really important. I mean, Bill Clift likes to talk about how he thinks his little postcards are really significant for him, not just the books that he produces, but the postcards, because people will buy them and put them on the refrigerator and live with them. And he feels that's a real compliment, that every time they open the refrigerator door, there's something that he made that they have this daily connection with.
Well, that must feed his ego very nicely.
So curmudgeons eat mystery for breakfast.
And humble pie for dinner.
There you go. Let's talk a little bit about nature. I know nature is kind of our enduring concern. We live in the woods. We go to these wilder places. You even eat them, sometimes past their due date. I remember that peach that you photographed and then ate it just to figure out what it would taste like.
I was so grateful for the image. I mean, it was a rotting peach.
Mm.
It had gone to the point of, I can't find the right word. But anyway, the image was created by its gradual deteriorating. And I took the photograph, I still enjoyed that image. And I thought, how can I just discard this when it has given me something that I really appreciate? So I ate it.
How did it taste?
Well, it was super fermented. And
What do you think?
if I had 2 of them, I would have got drunk.
Did it get into that picture or the next one?
Which?
The taste.
I missed that.
The super fermented taste. Did it get into that print or the next one?
Oh, well,
The next image.
Well, that's the question. And not the question, but the answer. It's a process.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a process. You're waking up every day. You're stimulated. You're stimulating. It's all there to be. What I'm curious about is, how in the world did I become an artist?
Mhm.
What is it that caused me to dwell more on nature as it was? And I think in those early days, I learned about getting to know myself, because my response was also important.
Mm.
Even getting rained on and catching cold. I mean, it was.
Well, I think making art feeds us in a particular way. It lets us cultivate our own internal gardens in ways that nobody else can and nothing else can. We might do them in very unique ways, though, as we should, because we're different. Pretty neat.
Well, I'm glad whoever did it made me an artist.
Mhm.
I could never have been an accountant.
So I can remember times being behind a waterfall that was lit up with fire, or in a helicopter flying like a bird over high dunes in Namibia, or gliding through ice sculpture gardens in Antarctica. I mean, these moments are breathtaking. I mean, they literally stop and catch your breath. And then you find yourself breathing hard again. There are these moments of awe, one might even call them sublime. And I'm wondering if you have similar experiences and other qualities you'd like to celebrate about being in nature, and that sense of, a loss of self, but also a reclamation of another part of ourselves and a unity with something much larger.
I never thought about it in this way, but what you just said, being there and being affected, and then actually making a photograph, an element of responsibility stepped in there that moment that you were asking the question, a responsibility of owing something to nature and giving her back to in some kind of truth. Unfortunately, my truth and its truth always kind of merge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a rare occasion when the apple says, "Oh, shut up! Here, take this."
I know it may be a responsibility, but it's never a burden.
No, that's because nature loves us, and we love nature. So there's no burden there. There is a sharing.
Dreams locked in silver.
I like that.
I love it. I love it. So what's the dream aspect? I get silver gelatin. I get these earth materials, rare earth metals. But tell me a little bit more about the dream quality there.
Take the apple photograph. Take the running white deer photograph. Take the rock wall photograph. These are images from I don't know where. they didn't happen because of the zone system. I mean, I got some good technical work done through the zone system, but again, eat mystery for breakfast, humble pie for dinner.
So after
Keep the sense of awe,
mm, mm,
which nature is constantly emitting, and link up to that. And I kind of feel a little sad for a person whose ego oversteps and steps on for the sake of its ego and loses that deeper touch with.
well, there are gifts that come by entering into it in that different way. And so maybe it's a sadness that they might not experience those other discoveries and those other gifts. I know that after having mastered your craft, the zone system, you also like to talk about the emotional zone system. Where are you going there?
Yeah, I wondered myself. I was doing a series of tests in the darkroom. I was actually trying to find out, does the zone system really work? In order to do that, I had to test several films with several different developer types, work with a densitometer, try to get everything quite carefully lined up to see the quality of this film and the characteristic of that film, what those differences are, and do I have avenues that I can work through?
Yeah.
And as I was doing all of that, I put my stuff on the wall and study it. And there's this flat surface with effects of space, suggestions of space. While I was looking at them, I don't know where the voice came from, but it was like a little internal voice that said, 3-dimensional zone system. And I didn't know what it meant. But that's very curious. We'll see, maybe 3-dimensional zone system. I continued working, and within a week or 10 days, I went back to my studies, and the voice came again. And it not only said, or I heard 3-dimensional zone system, but I simultaneously realized that it's the emotional element that you add to the process of this 2-dimensional work. That was the 3rd dimension.
I think it's a profound mystery that somehow gets into the materials and might even persist long after we're gone.
It's doing it while we speak.
You know, these voices we hear, we don't need medication, do we? Betty, I think we'll turn it over to questions you have, the questions the group has, whoever's joining us here. Look forward to talking with you.
Sure. I think Michael's going to pop back on, and we have lots of love spreading all through the chat. Michael, are you back?
Old friends.
Yes, I am back. That was fantastic. You have quite a few questions here. I don't know if I'm going to see if I can get through all of them. Babette Buster wrote to you, Paul. In 1984, I had a transcendent experience viewing your silver gelatin print of sunflowers in a vase. Though I was broke and had no money, I worked to save money so that I could buy this first print, my very first piece of fine art, which I now proudly display in my living room. Thank you. It's been a great conversation between you and me through the years. Art in everyone's home restores the soul daily. So I don't know if there's really a question in there, but it's really kind of a fantastic note to you.
I'll put a little footnote into that one, that particular image. In southern France, there was the Institute for Van Gogh. They were making a collection of photographs as well as paintings. And I donated that particular image to this collection of the Van Gogh Association. because it reminded me so much of one of Van Gogh's paintings.
That's great. Yeah. Fritz Gochner has written, why black and white? Why not realistic full color? This is a
For
great
me-
question, actually, for the both of you. It's a great conversation.
For me personally, color is too close to the real world. That is, it will cause the associative process to work a lot faster, a lot harder, and a lot insistently. Whereas black and white will abstract. It will allow you to take elements of what's before you. You eliminate the color and you have form. It reduces so that you can choose portions of it to make the statement you feel might be possible.
Well, this character showed me that black and white is color. I remember my mouth just going open as he showed me these different developers and different papers. And he said, look, the color is different. You see how this one's warmer? See how this one's colder? You see how that changes not only the emotional response, but also the sense of space within the image? I never saw black and white the same way again. For me, black and whites are two of my favorite colors. So when people look at my more semi-neutral work, like one of the prints that's back here, and I say, well, you don't do a lot of really super saturated color. Well, I do in certain cases. I remember Dad was out at the Ansel Adams workshop one year teaching, and we were driving to dinner with the director. I don't remember who the director was, but he was saying, I just get the sense that color in photography is there's going to be a renaissance, and digital imaging is going to be a part of that. One of the old saws that used to be fired at color photographers earlier is that there wasn't enough control with the analog materials, that it was, quote, merely representational, which is an interesting statement to make, interesting value structure as well. But I think in terms of talking about that sense of psychological and emotional transportation that certain color relationships can have, whether they're neutral, semi-neutral, or very saturated. When you look at a Rothko, you look at a Gauguin, how the colors have been transformed, and so our emotional response and the journey that we're having has been transformed. And the computer allows color to be wildly transformed. The only limits are just how representational we want the image to be. So color as this psychic response is really fascinating to me. And I think the other thing that needs to be emphasized is color is what we do. Constantly think about music and color. There's been this long history of an analogy between the two. So we're listening to certain vibrations and we turn them into sound and we organize them into music, and we see other vibrations. It's all part of one electromagnetic spectrum, but we do things with that. So there's this big old question: is the color out there or is the color in here? So much of the response to color is in here, and it doesn't just stop optically. It's also psychological. It's also emotional. And I think in art, we want to get into those deeply personal responses to the natural world.
And all that color made from black and white keys.
Right. Chromatically, you can say chromatic scales. You guys, you and Ansel and so many others are constantly going on about the tonal scale. Right? There's so many musical analogies in the history of photography. And of course, painters have been talking about this in color for the longest time. Goethe even assigned musical notes to specific colors, trying to figure out this correspondence. Kandinsky tried to paint music. I named some of my earlier pieces Sonata in Blue, Prelude in Gray. Yeah. So this expressive vibration. And of course, then there's what's under the vibration. Right? There's some sense of resonance, which I think is deeply connected to some of the ideas that Stieglitz started with equivalence. Minor White, I think, was much clearer about it. And Minor took it and said, the end of equivalence, that is, did you get what I'm saying? Can we have an equivalent experience? The end point of that is a sense of resonance. So when we read a great poem, when we listen to a great piece of music, when we look at a great piece of art, there's a vibration set up in us. We resonate at a sympathetic vibration.
It's such a gift to palpitate.
There you go. Keep breathing.
Keep breathing, palpitate. And
So Renee Giffroy has asked if she were stated that she'd be interested to know which of John Paul's work Paul has in his house and why.
oh, I'm not going to give you an answer to why. I mean, the work is beautiful, but they may have been pieces that he was working on at the time, and I was visiting his studio. But there's so much that I could choose from. And to be quite frank, I don't care about the idea of a favorite. So the why has to go out the window. Work is work. What was the other part of that question?
No, that was which ones you have in your house, which images stand out, or yeah, which images do you personally have?
Nature landscapes, straight nature landscapes, not the multiple imaging he's into at the moment.
Hey, what about that waterfall?
That's just straight,
Almost.
almost. How did you arrange that?
Waterfalls don't have constellations in them, Dad. But it's, it's pretty
Oh.
minimal.
Yeah, you selected the right moment to
Yeah.
catch that.
I had to go back to that waterfall 4 times, and then I had to stand still for about an hour and a half, get totally wet to
Oh,
get those shots,
you did get wet.
and talk about an experience. of
One
color.
should suffer for art.
I wasn't suffering.
Oh,
It was full body immersion in
Yeah.
the sublime.
Well, yeah, we need a bath once in a while.
Yeah, a lot.
There's a great, it's kind of a nice segue to Tom Ludwig's question. He says that making a print and taking the photograph seem like two separate creative experiences. Do you see them as two separate states of mind?
I'm going to tell him to throw out the state of mind right off the bat, because the real work is state of heart. You feel what you're doing. You get the mental part of it. I think you should get over with as quickly as possible by learning your medium, understanding your materials, knowing that you can select from it the portions in the right proportions to create an image. Mind is, for me, too bothersome. It helps me with the right exposure. It'll help me use my light meter and this, that, and the other. But I try to feel, I don't even try. It's important for me as a palpitator to move through the process, through life with my emotions totally there and noting how it's responding, affecting, being beat on. So it's a state of heart, not a state of mind. Now, what was the other part of that question? I forget.
Asking about the two different states of mind, but the state of mind was
Making
really
a print and
making a print or taking the photograph. Sorry, yeah, actually taking the image, making the image.
More often than not, you will carry back the experience, your emotional, mental, physical experience of having been in the field, working with the camera, making some exposures. You bring that back into the darkroom. And the zone system likes to tell you that if you have pre-visualized properly, you can bring back exactly what you were feeling and experiencing in the outdoors. I don't find that true, and I find it a burden, as a matter of fact. There's no question I fell in love with that particular landscape. There's something about the space in it, and I will try to keep that alive in the print that I make. But as happened with the Apple photograph, I'm always leaving things open to interpret what I did experience in the field with the camera, interpret in such a way as to discover what else is possible. What was it Minor White said? Photograph a thing for what it is and photograph it also for what else it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I agree with Dad in terms of that sense of openness, and how important it is to have the heart, even the gut, that second nervous system in the process. But rather than trying to get away from mind, I'm just not that good at Zen. I can't. I prefer to meditate and get my mind under control and realize mindfully what it's doing at the time and how that's different from sometimes what's actually going on. I agree with Dad that, we have these ideas about remembering what the scene was like and then coming back and trying to reproduce it. And I love doing this in some of my workshops on color, where I'll put one color, just one color, not a gradient, just one color up on the screen for, gosh, a minute. And say, okay, try and remember that color. And then I hide it. I say, okay, now go mix it. If I've shown some kind of pink, I get anything from salmon to some kind of purpley mauve. Look, this is looking at one color for a whole minute. When was the last time you did that? And when you're looking at an image, you're looking at millions of colors. And this is what, 2 minutes after you looked at it? The point is not to show our deficiencies. The point is to say, okay, so memory is flexible. It's creative. No matter how much JPEG compression is in there, it should give us a certain sense of liberty to be able to recognize the print. The final image is its own thing. It represents some aspects of it, but so many other things are lost. But then there's this sense of emotion, story, soul that may be put into it that makes the story richer. And I think it's actually really fascinating. It's one of the things I love about workshops. So when you get a dozen people together in the same location at the same time, and then you look over the varied responses that they have, such different images, and you realize, wow, we're really a big part of this process and a big part of how our images come out.
Yeah.
And be
There's
certain when you get upstairs, John, be certain not to question God about that whole process. Don't tell him he did it wrong. You are biting off quite a bit. You like to take in a great deal. And it's a good thing you are 6'2" to be able to contain all of that.
I got a mind. I'm going to use it, or it's going to use me.
There's a really great question. I think we have time for one more. There's a number of sentiments in the chat window about how 1 hour is not nearly enough. So I agree. We'll have to get you back. But there's a great question from, I think it's Paula Rick Johnson, that I think could be posed to both of you in this call, like maybe no other alumni lecture we've had, which is, over your 60 years, Paul, and your entire career, JP, do you have any reflections on the future of the print with the wealth of experience that you had with image making over that span? What reflections might you offer on the future of the print itself?
Like a lot of stuff in nature, it's going to disappear one time or another, no matter how archivally you produce it. What does he mean by the future of it? It'll last as long as you last.
Maybe a little longer.
Because you won't be able to see it after you go to hell or heaven or wherever you're going to.
Yeah, but that print up there is going to last, hopefully, many years after you're gone. And I'll be able to remember many stories, including this one.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Great. Good. Maybe there's some technology behind that question as well. We've lived through an extraordinary time where the silver gelatin darkroom, when I was a kid, that was the kind of de facto standard. Though if we went 50 years earlier than when Dad got started, it would have been something else, right? And we've seen color photography rise. We've actually seen some people lament the disappearance of making the print in daily people's lives. We're not making the prints in the same way because we can share things on social networks and websites and email them to each other. But at the same time, more prints are being made than ever before. There's more people in the game. More images are made in a single year. Technologically, I'm absolutely thrilled by where inkjet has come with a Dmax better, darker than silver gelatin, with a gamut that far exceeds some of the early days, some really beautiful, rich, saturated colors, and I look forward to that continuing. But I'm looking forward to seeing the next refractive polymer print. What I mean is a butterfly's wings are bright blue, not because it reflects light, but because it refracts it, bends it back at you. I'm interested in prints that are walls. Our prints can be painted onto surfaces with some of that technology. And if that's nanotechnology, the image might move. So much as there have been like an amazing, honestly, revolution, everybody kind of trips up over r/evolution as my video series, but that's what I mean. It's both an evolution and a revolution, right? And that evolution is going to continue. We're going to see prints the likes of which we've never seen before, and that's going to be really exciting. And no, painting is not dead, and neither is analog or historic processes. In fact, digital technology is helping people make digital contact negatives to create this resurgence in historic processes. I think more people are engaged in those historic processes now than at any other time before. So it just keeps getting more exciting.
That's great. That's a great way to end our call. I love that. Look at the future. Thank you both so very much for not just for this conversation, but also for all of the contributions you've made to image making and printing and photography. And I think it's really enlightened all of our lives, and will continue to for forever. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the workshops.
Thank you very much.
We'll see all of you soon, hopefully on the 17th. So join us again, and come visit us this summer. We'll host you on campus. It'd be great to see you in person. So
It'll be fun.
Bye, everybody, wherever you are.